So the first question we ask is this: how much of your nervous system is set up to transmit and perceive pain? So if we're going to take a pie chart, I love pie charts. So we have a pie chart here. What percentage of the nervous system is set up to transmit and perceive pain? The vast majority of people are going to tell us it's probably about 100%. Well, absolutely not. If you look at great things to Google up is what percentage of the nervous system, and people are going to talk about anywhere from 10 to 20%. That's all. 10 to 20% of your nervous system is set up to transmit and perceive pain. A fundamental part of the education of our practice members is understanding this one part. So it's only 10%. The bigger question is, what's the other 90%? That's the great question. So draw a line right through there, and we're going to look at this, and this is really fundamental. What's this 45% and this 45%? And that's the great part, because this is the motor portion, and this is the autonomic. And we go through with our practice members, let them know what the motor portion is going to involve and what the autonomic portion is going to involve. Got that eraser? That was from Cindy. So we first start off with that, is what percentage of the nervous system transmit and perceives pain? Only about 10%. Okay. The next thing we go into is a really fundamental part of this is we talk about the stresses. So when do stresses start in your life? And people say, well, it's when I get married or when I started working. No, when do stresses start? And so we talk about the three types of stresses. We talk about the physical, and we go through all the physical stresses. We talk about the posture. We talk about the number of times you fell as a kid. And kids fall thousands of times. We talk about the postures you have when you're working. How many hours a day do you do this? And then you drive. How many times have you had accidents, car accidents? The average American takes one about every 7 years. That's a small one. That doesn't include the small ones, which you banged in something about 5 or 10 miles an hour. Those are the big ones that you have. So car accidents. How many sports did you play? And how many times did you fall in sports? How many times have your bell rung? How many times did you fall on your butt so hard you thought you broke your tailbone? Now we start to add all those up. How was your own birth? So you start looking at all those physical stresses. We start going bum, 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 bum. Add them all up. We start talking about the toxins. How many toxins do you come in contact with? And so we talk about your own birth. We talk about all the foods that you eat, the environment that's around you, the pollutions. How many products do you use? You know, on the average, women use like 15 to 20 products a day. I mean, I use 2. I'm not even quite sure they even work half the time. So you look at all those toxins: cigarette smoke, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, prescribed drugs, street drugs. Add them all up. We start looking at all those. Boom, 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 boom. Then we start looking at the mental and emotional stresses. How many of those have you had? How often do you have them? How many times has your boss told you, you know something, you're not really very good at your job? How many times have you been in relationships where lousy? How many stresses did you have? Maybe the passing of a spouse or a friend or a loved one. Add those all up. So here's a really, really fundamental question that we have for our practice members, is when do these stresses start? When do they actually start? And we get right down to the basis of, we start whittling back. Typically these stresses start before you were born. Wow, before you were born. And how often do you experience these stresses? Every day. So I've had these stresses from birth to now, and we know those stresses are going to stop. The only time those stresses are going to stop is when? When you die. So I have these stresses, just one stress or a couple or combination of stresses. I have a combination of stresses every single day. Absolutely. From before I was born, every single day. And we get our practice members to agree on this. They're like, oh yeah, I get them all the time. Fantastic. So here's the key part. We talk about level of stresses. And we talk about the stresses you have every single day. So let's pretend that you have so many stresses in your life. You have so many stresses in your life that at level 10 of stress, now you have the symptom. So it might be the headaches, might be the migraines, might be the digestive problem, immune system problems, whatever it is. When you hit level 10 of the stresses, then the bell goes off. You've had so much fire in the house, now the smoke detector goes off, the fire alarm goes off. And I always make that correlation with them. So much smoke in the house, the fire's been there for so long, and so much smoke that now it gets up to that fire alarm and the bell goes off. Okay, people get that. So the big question is this: what if I had a fire that was only a level 9? The question is it a big enough fire to then hit the fire alarm? And the answer is no, it hasn't. It hasn't. So we talk about the stresses. These are all the stresses in your life that have come up, and that's when the stresses hit such a level, and now the symptom shows up. Well, how about this one? You've had stresses every single day of your life in 3 or 4 different kinds of styles, and they've been there before you were born. Well, you've had those stresses. Now, where are those stresses in your body? You've told me that you've had them every single day. You've had them for your whole life. Where are those stresses showing up? Where are they? Well, the amazing part, we get back to the very first thing we talked about, is the nervous system. That if it doesn't show up in the pain, then where does it show up? It has to show up in the autonomic nervous system or the motor portion of the nervous system. Oh, that's why my muscles are always. Oh, that's why I always have the indig. Oh, that's why my digestion is always. Yeah, that's why. Here's the amazing part. Can I have that one too, please? This is why we do the nervous system scans. Because this is the best way we can actually find out what your nervous system says about you before the fire alarm has gone off. That's why we do the scans. And these stresses that affect your nervous system like this, that's the subluxation. Oh, okay. We show them this on a regular basis. Now they get it. Now it's not a matter of what we talked about today about the episode of chiropractic, the episode of getting nervous system adjustments. It's my lifestyle has led me to this, and therefore I need to get adjusted for the rest of my life. That's how we educate them. Let me know how we can use this. You can turn it off.